Good to see you back for the second part of my conversation with Hannes Schmid about the Smiling Gecko and also about him as the illustrious person that he is, his wonderful career as a star photographer, be it in the music business or the fashion business. So much he lived through, so many insights he's going to share with us.
You know, you don't need to know everything, but you can go and ask people. And funny enough, if you go and ask people, they support you. If you always think you know everything, nobody supports you. So this is a bit my way, quick learning, quick understanding, packing everything in what I learned in my life, my experience. And this leads to something. And then you have to have stamina. Don't give up. Make mistake, put them aside, learn from your mistake, go on, go on, go on, go on. Try to trust your idea. You have a luxury school. I said, do I have a luxury school? Education is money. How much money, how many billion do we invest in education? And then there's another thing. We as parents here, right, we give life skills. Well, we actually crazy. We train our children like the monkeys who fly to the moon. When they can crawl forward, they have to crawl backward. When they stay on two legs, they have to stay on one leg, right? Good, they can actually do like this with the hand, and they have to hold the violin, and they're not even big enough, and they have to play piano. So we investing before they go to school, hell of a lot of money, and we know kids costing millions a year. This doesn't exist in the third world. Their parents have nothing. They can't read. They can't write. They don't have a toilet. They don't have a bed. They don't have a teddy bear they can cuddle up. There's no mother who's telling them a story at night. We should look onto this human capital. And that's where no money or very little money, inefficient, is always. They put money in PPP, in corporations, in building roads and building stuff. It's okay.
Red tape, bureaucracy, people involved.
But it's the wrong way. I mean, for me, it's a lot of money. I'm spending the donation, but it's peanuts. It's a couple of $1 million. And what we can achieve with this little money, if you have an economical understanding that. The fact is, if you give me 1 million, I don't have to pay you back. I don't have to pay interest. And actually, I don't even have to tell you what I do with it. You know, I send you a report, right? Can you imagine a corporation, UBS gives you 10 million and say, look, all right, we don't want anything from you. Just spend it the way you want. I mean, this is the advantage we have as an NGO. But then we should take the money and we should use it like investments, like corporation. We need audits. We need to know. We need to have market researchers. We need to know what is possible to do with that.
Exactly. And that is the crucial point here. And I think we need to get into, moving from an NGO that gets the money and nobody even cares as long as they've got their tax deduction, on one hand, into something that is really changing in a sustainable way in the long term and can be scalable because it's profitable. And at the end of the day, I pulled out the latest data for you when it comes to impact investing. And I would like to move into that kind of conversation with you as well, simply because that for me in my head is like kind of the next step. And there is a lot of scope, room to grow and to the upside in impact investing, because impact investing, especially in 2020, has started to show quite a bit of traction. It's been going on for quite a while, but the 2020 annual Impact Investor Survey said from all of the questioned people, asset managers, they managed to gather about $404 billion. 69% of these managers expect impact investing to grow steadily, and 21% describing the market as about to take off. So I wonder, Hannes, whether impact investing, now that ESG is more or less going from boutique to mainstream or main street, that we have this kind of traction also in impact investing, because that would change the reality of Smiling Gecko big time, that you say, I've established a project that is more than a project because it is break even, it's making money with a fish farm, with the farms, the hotel, you have a hotel as well. I don't know whether you do have the cooking school, but you do have something, a carpentry you have down there. And these are all jobs that you created, you educated the people, they're now producing goods, professionally produced goods, which are sellable. So you are at a point where you are break even and possibly beyond, making for investors a return on their investment.
Well, there is a big misunderstanding. Investing always means paying back and paying interest. Now, if you're in agriculture like we are, agriculture is the highest risk you have. You're not getting money under 12, 14%, and you have to pay back your 100, 200,000 in between 3 years. Because investors, and I had to learn, their job is to make money. It's the same. Don't go to a bank and ask for philanthropy money. Their business is to make money. Even if they have a foundation in the bank, they even want to make more money than actually the other, and they have goals, right? So the problem is that we cannot take investments. There's another thing. If I take an investment in my carpentry, first of all, I would have to take my carpentry out of the NGO. Right? Also for liability reason. Well, the donations I cannot put back into the carpentry anymore because it's a corporation. The law, the regulations in Switzerland and any other country, if it's philanthropy money, I cannot put it into corporation. It's not possible. I cannot pay back as an NGO and I cannot pay interest. It's also not the right way to go. You have to understand, like just UN actually published, we are again another 15 years being put back to this crisis. Why were we put back in this? Because there is infrastructure of roads, but there is no human capital infrastructures. That means human capital investments in that, it takes 20 years. Yeah. So 20 years, I cannot pay back 20 years. And in our positions, our plan is from an NGO into a social enterprise, into an enterprise. But to become a social enterprise, regulations and laws have to be changed. The Swiss government have to allow me a certain amount of my donations, of my grants, to be put into this kind of half corporation. Same, the Cambodian government has to allow me that, because as soon as I'm a corporation, they're going to tax me. So impact investment is not for NGOs. This is for corporations. And this is the very big problem we have. But it is stupid because NGOs, they are rooted, they're a long time there, and we have to force NGO become more economical thinking, to have an audit, to go step by step, to have partners, not partners giving you money alone, money like universities help you to develop science, like we have Implenia, we have Sika, we have they live their corporate social responsibility through us, right? And this is our big sell, is CSR. Every company today have to do CSR, and when it's even related with what they do, I mean, Sika is one of the largest company for these concrete additives. Implenia one day probably will like to go to Asia to do construction because you cannot make money anymore here. So actually, NGOs could be the top of the spear for the next 20, 30 years of economy. And also the human capital we're going to build in the next 20 years. If you take in 2030, 50% of the Swiss are over 65. They don't work anymore. They're pensioners. They cost money. Now we have another 50% left. Half of them go to school and they go for universities and learn and study. And then we have 25% of the working capital we have here, human capital, we have to find all this, what we have, to maintain our social institution, our roads, our clean water, everything. It's not going to work. So that means we need to build up very strong economies outside, educate the people so they can make business, they can start company, they can have an innovation, so that they have the money to buy our products, who are mainly based in the next 50 years on innovation capital and not on growing rice in Switzerland or you know what. I mean, this is what we have to understand. We have to invest money over the next 15 years. Where in 15 years, yes, it will pay out. In 15 years, I can dislocate one of my NGO corporation, like my carpentry, but by then they need to be stable in the market. They need to produce products, right? They need to have the local people have to be able to run, and not again the Chinese, the Vietnam, and the Europeans. But for this, I need the time, because we have to build all this up. And this time, we need money who is philanthropic, and is money where we can't pay. But if, say, as an example, Implenia is with us for the next 15 years, we build the base that in 50 years they can start a corporation. We have educated the people, we have educated the management, they bring a little bit of their know-how, and they can move from Switzerland there. And where is the biggest growing economy in the next 30 years? Well, a big part of East Asia is ASEAN, and we have to go there. But it's not going there and build a little corporation, and then we have these PPP finances. I mean, they support, like the government support the company who goes there, builds a company, builds a machine, and the product we produce then is going to be put back to Switzerland or to Germany, and then the government is matching. Is this the wrong way? It's not the way it works. Right?
But Well, if I just may interject there, and I think I just had an epiphany with you because, for me, of course, I'm an investor and I like impact investing. And Bertrand Badré, he with his blue-orange capital, he does impact investing as well. So there's a lot where people have seemed to move on into a business, a small business, a highly risk business in these kind of precarious countries and circumstances, and hope eventually to have some return. But what you are saying is we need to build first the groundwork, and this is what we are doing with the help of grants, that whatever we are building with a Smiling Gecko is actually first of all, stimulating the local economy, our products being bought by the local economy, our educated guys setting up in their local economy, becoming richer than buying. And this is where we get to a certain level that we have more and more potential entrepreneurs that have real businesses, not NGOs, but registered businesses with all the governance around it and the tax issues as well, that potentially can be then investment targets. Did I get that right?
That's correct. It's like this, like you see, like as a sample with us, we are in fish. We have one of the largest science center in Asia. I mean, we produce the healthiest fish. It's organic, right? And now, what is the return for the Swiss ETH? Now we're discussing to build a university of applied science. Why? We have to study tropical agriculture. And not only that, we need local agriculture engineers. Well, we have them. They go, they study is theoretically. But the ZHAW, where it is applied science, I mean, you study and you do it, and you study and you do it and get a different understanding. This is what we need in the long run. It's the benefit for us. So that is paybacks in completely different ways. But we building the base. It took us 100 years in Switzerland till we are established like today. You know, the farmers, they had no work in the winter, so they started to do stitching and waving, and out of this actually the whole industry started, the garment industry started, right? But that's where we are. We are somewhere 60, 80 years back. And of course, Cambodia is special because the Red Khmer, they wiped everything out, who had a more or less a little bit an IQ and were wearing glasses, who could read and write. So this is even more on top of it. But we have to understand, we cannot put money, the money we make as Smiling Gecko, we have to reinvest in that human capital. We have to reinvest into the farmers. We have to reinvest into the development. Agriculture, you cannot do this like this in 1 month. It's not working. So it's a different way of thinking. What we have to go for. It's a long term. It's like family businesses. They invest in the next generation in the next 15, 20 years. And out of the family businesses became large corporations at the end, right? Because they invested over this long time. So this, for me, this is a narrow thinking, putting in 1 million and then 3 years out taking out 2 million. It's not working. We don't have the chance. You can, of course, build up. Well, where did we make money with these countries? Slavery, 1.9 million women in garment factories with 11 and 14 cents. No health insurance, no compensations, right? Not even food, right? And they only get money when they work. Well, we had on the 22nd of February, 2020, we got hit by COVID. The factories were closed. 1.6 million people were out of work. There was not one little penny of compensation. They had to go to their countryside. They had already no money on the countryside and not enough to eat. This is a big disaster. And there's not much aid coming from the outside. The government is not interested. You know, they just cut all the salaries. They closed for over 14 months the schools. They not because they had to, no, because they didn't have to pay the teachers' salaries.
Exactly, it's convenience. It's convenient.
It's convenient, right? And I mean, you see, we have to understand that these systems, and I hope that COVID helps us to understand that we have to allocate this money in a different way.
Yes.
We are proof. I can tell you with our data we have, with everything, we can prove it works, but it's a long time investment. You know, that's what it is.
Yes, and I'm looking so much forward to coming actually to Cambodia and spending some time with you guys down there in the hotel. It looks absolutely fantastic. And Cambodia, you were just saying, is a special place. It's a special place to me. This is where we chose to have our honeymoon with my husband, and it was really the juxtaposition of the place we were, which is paradise in terms of nature, and then we actually ventured out in the local fishing village, and I just thought, okay, this is not real. This is Disneyland. They did that on purpose for us tourists, so we would, give them donations and money. And we had the local guide there, and he said, no, this is not put on. This is really what the majority of our population lives like. And it was, it was flabbergasting and shocking. And that really, for the first time, raised the flag. I always knew there's poverty. I always knew there's people that live below $5, $2, or even $1 a day, but that they wouldn't even have the basics and really live in rubbish, not surrounded by rubbish, but in rubbish was a real eye-opener, Hannes. And as I say, what you are doing is amazing. And I think it is scalable as a project. And you were saying already that you have other governments looking at what you're doing already. Now, just to wrap up this part of our conversation before we go a little bit more into Hannes Schmid and your illustrious personality, which you've been displaying for the past 40 minutes with me here on Mentory TV. What are the key messages you would send out to the governments that spend these billions or hundreds of billions of dollars on aid? What to look out for, where the money really goes? What do you think are the critical points?
No, I think we're running the system in philanthropy, government or private, like we did 20 years ago. Nothing has changed. So we have to start to rethink. There is a different mindsets, We have to look, as I said, a lot of things comes here from the top down. When I'm in Davos, when I'm sit with the 19 institutions who are actually running the SDGs, right, I'm always surprised how little knowledge they really had for grassroots. You need to come from the bottom up, and you need to come from the top down, and then you meet in the middle. First of all, your time can cut in half, right? But that is very little understanding. A small sample, I mentioned on this big meeting with everybody, I said, but what is my interest? I'm also a corporation to put money in the SDG. What do I get back? Well, you feel good and you help the world and the poor people. I said, yes, okay, but I have shareholders. My shareholders say, are you guys crazy? We make a little profit. We're not going to give you profit away. I said, well, we have two corporations who have understood in Switzerland to do the things right. They said, oh, okay, yes. And they both orange. One is called Migros and the other is Coop. And when I'm with Migros, I have a Cumulus card there, right? Each time I buy something, I get points. And at the end, I get the points back that maybe make me going to the Migros. Why don't we make a Cumulus card for the SDGs? Mm-hmm. Well, because if I spend so much money and it's still government money, maybe I get a tax exemption of 0.5% of a percent. So suddenly I have arguments how I put the money in there. But then at the end, the system, it's not holistic. We always go only fraction. It's like you have a cut, you put a plaster, a cut, you have a plaster. Yes. And that's why we have to change. The governments, even DETSA, they use us as a model. They want to become partners with us, but not to give us money to copy our system. Right? And I always say, hey, but first you have to put over a check. I mean, we invest.
Exactly. We are selling you our idea. Exactly.
Right. Otherwise we then finally like China, you can copy everybody else's, right? But the people who are in there are still the same people. The system the governments have, 4 years, another 4 years, still the same system. And they tell me always, we like to be like you, but we cannot be like you. Right? It's these private initiatives, it's like this kind of thing, but governments, they also institutions like UN, they like the Titanic, they are tankers, right? Until they start to turn around, it probably takes many years. What we are working now as with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, with the advisory department, I'm the little Hannes Schmid. Even I got a doctor title from the University of Zurich. I'm a nobody. And we have to prove to McKinsey, to PwC, to to Ernst & Young, the big consultants, that this is an economical kind of subject. And if we don't do that, we will have a hard time, even more hard time in the future. And that's what we have to understand. And then maybe there is a rethinking if you have these big brains, the ones who studied the last 50 years, the big brains, if they start to agree that this is something, but realistically, it will take a long time.
It will take a long time, and the big brain's thinking, but one thing is to have the theory and then putting your money where your mouth is and enacting, implementing. And then, of course, with that comes the question, exactly how. And this is where sometimes the system breaks down. Hannes, I think the Smiling Gecko is an amazing, life project, as you were saying, and you are certainly everything but the little Hannes Schmid. And we're going to talk about you right now, but I think anybody, check it out on the website, Smiling Gecko. It is awesome. As I said, I am heavily vested into it with my heart, and I'm trying to support this NGO as much as I can, be it with my contacts, etc. So really, Hannes, really, really good. Next chapter. The little Hannes Schmid is just a star photographer, a star artist that eventually then founded Smiling Gecko, which is also rising to become an NGO star. And your career started as a photographer at a young age. And then, I don't know what it was, but it was, I guess, because you were meant to be, you started taking pictures of the biggest American or international rock stars, such as Deep Purple, for example. Tell us a little bit about that world, that Hannes Schmid back then, compared to the Hannes Schmid that you are right now.
I'm born 1946, and a very poor family. I was go-Peter. We didn't have money, so I had to work in the summers. My school was very bad. I only have 6-year primary, 2-year secondary school, right? And I was always a very curious kid, right? So then the only thing I was able to do was an apprenticeship as an electrician, right? And in 68, I thought, Switzerland is a bit small for me. So I immigrated to Cape Town, and there I was working for a German company, and we had very big salaries, actually, compared to the rest of it, but actually we didn't have enough work. So I was buying a camera and start taking pictures, right? And it's fascinating me because nobody asked me anymore who I am. I was the photographer, right? And I had access everywhere. The black community, the white community, rich community, and that fascinated me. So I started traveling 4 years through Africa at that time. And unfortunately, there was no laboratory, so I had to send my films back to my sister, but she would never send me the picture back. She was writing to me, post studies done. They said, Hans, I think there was a good one, but the rest looks very dark and very bright. So 4 years, I've never seen a picture. And I came back. I was disappointed. I moved on to Singapore, and then was living nearly 1 year with the orangutans in Bandar Aceh and the orangutan rehabilitation stations. And after I tried to find Michael Rockefeller in Irian Jaya, he was disappeared in 64. He lived with Danis and Lanis, Stone Age people and cannibals. And then I was very sick, came back and was 1 year in the hospital. And then I had a friend, he worked for a record company. So he said to me after the hospital time, he said, hey, have you ever been on a concert? I said, no, never before. Said, you have to come. There's a crazy concert. There's a crazy band. They called Status Quo. They play in the Halle Stadion, 10,000 people. So I went there. Well, what I found there was actually my cannibals. They were shaking their hands and they were shaking their cats. And the music was terribly, it was loud, it didn't sound right, and the people went crazy. So I started to take some pictures. I was invited for dinner, and at dinner, the band, I was early, the band came in, and then Rick Parfit, Francis Rossi, long hair, said, who is this guy? And then my friend, he's a photographer, said, get out of here. We don't want to eat with photographers. He said, no, he's a crazy guy. He used to eat rats and mouses. He used to live with cannibals. So I told him my story, right? After the dinner, the manager came and said, did you really take picture of cannibals? I said, yeah, kind of. Then you have to shoot my band. So the next day I had a photo session, and for them, I was not a photographer. So it was the most amazing pictures. The manager said to me, do you need a job? I need a guy like you. They hate photographers. Everybody hates photographers, but you can travel with us. So 2 days later, I packed my little suitcase and I started traveling 9 years, 257 bands from Aba to Set Zappa. I was their private photographer. I was in their home. I spent holidays with them. I was on tour with them. And I have over 70,000 pictures in my rock archive. And from there, then it went into fashion through Nina Hagen. She was a
Big German star. I know. I grew up with Nina Hagen. You actually had
They started GQ in Germany. That was Men of Vogue, and they wanted her on a cover. So she went to London with Patrick Demarchelier, a famous fashion photographer, but she showed him the finger because he treated her like a model. And she said, I'm a rock star. I want Hannes. So they had a dilemma because Hannes had no idea about fashion. So I went to London and we took like stupid pictures. He was halfway dressed in a laundry mat salon where she washed her clothes, and we were stealing a baby on the street from a guy, and she pretended she's a mother and all this kind of crazy thing. They printed it and it was a sensation. Then Women Walk came, right? And I did the first fashion story. I climbed the Eiger Sanction because I thought, well, all these girls posing and blue side. This is not winter, it's cold, it's like storms. So I climbed the Eiger Sanction and this opened the world. 2 weeks later after publication, I was in Paris with Kenzo, and my huge career as a fashion photographer, Gucci, Prada, Armani, Vogue, Harper's, started. Then after around 2003, I was taking on into the big advertisement world, Camel Trophy, and then Marlboro. And out of that, I started to do my own work, started to go into the arts. And that's how I became what I am today.
Exactly. It is amazing, that trajectory, from somebody that became an electrician, then found the camera becoming a passepartout, and then really opening a couple of the most glamorous and secluded worlds, be it the rock star, the singers, and also, let's say, the fashion world. But let me do the last screen share for our session, Hannes. And that is, if I find it, that is when you actually set out to do the American myth. And that is where you started taking the pictures of cowboys, real cowboys, and this is where the Marlboro man really was depicted most beautifully. And let me just, without much ado, maybe you want to say a couple of things whilst I'm scrolling through them, but these were the ones that really captured me. And you are sitting in front of one of your fantastic photos as well. These were shot by you.
Yeah, that was shot by, what you see behind me is not a photograph, it's a painting, because I've been forced in 2013 in 2003 to become a painter, because one of the most famous American contemporary artists, Richard Prince, he was appropriating my work. So he photographed my work and he removed the Marlboro sign. They looked like this, more or less. And he became through this very famous. And my work in 2003 was actually sold for $600,000, $700,000, $900,000. Today they go for 2.1 million to 3.4 million. I'm not getting anything because he is an appropriation artist, right? His motto is stolen but original. But then because I couldn't go out with my photographs, because then I would be more or less a plagiat to Richard Prince, I had to find a change of the media. So I had to learn to paint. It took me 5 years to learn to paint. And over through this painting, suddenly I was in New York and had a huge exhibition. The Whitney Museum awarded one of my paintings as the best artwork of the year, right? And suddenly I had press, and then they discovered I have rock stars. So then a book has been published, Rock Stars. And with this book, I was on tour like a rock star from all the radio stations in Germany, in France, in England, and everywhere else. And that was that kind of twist, becoming an artist, an artist. What is an artist? We are good handcrafted. We good workers, right? And it's the society, it's the outside who decide what is art and what is not art, right? And but it was amazing for me. But also through the sales that I had with. Sorry, I'm messing up here.
That's okay.
With all the sales we could achieve with the museum's exhibition, I was able to finance Smiling Gecko, and actually all our family money we made with our art went into there. So it's a lot. My life is very crazy. It comes one to one, and people always say, why can you do this? Why? I think I'm very curious. I'm not afraid to take a risk, or for me, it's not even a risk. But I want to go forward. I want to grow. I want to develop. And when I got my title as honored doctors. You know, it was a big ceremony here, and you know, there were other guys. They also got these honored doctors, but they had amazing curriculums. You know, Berkeley and Harvard and what. And then I came, and then my professor who awarded me, you know, said, "Oh, he's Hannes Schmid. He has 6 years of primary and 2 years of secondary." It was dead quiet there. Yes. And then I had to speak, right? And I said, "Look, I do understand, but I always believed that I should get a doctor title." Well, then it was quite the game, you know. And I said, "I will tell you why, because I know nothing. And because I know nothing, I go ask people who know something. But I always ask 3. And then I make up which one I can trust the most." And then, of course, everybody clapped and whatever. But this is the system. You know, you don't need to know everything, but you can go and ask people. And funny enough, if you go and ask people, they support you. If you always think you know everything, nobody supports you. So this is a bit my way, quick learning, quick understanding, packing everything in what I learned in my life, my experience. And this leads to something. And then you have to have stamina. Don't give up. Make mistake. Put them aside, learn from your mistake, go on. Try to trust your idea, but always listen to other people, consult other people. And that's what Smiling Gecko is about. This is a huge pot of knowledge created by all these people. And I'm the guy with the flag, you know, or the guy who plays the whistle and everybody follows him behind, right? But also, that's my biggest problem, because it's still a lot on me. It's on my head. I'm 75 years old. I just had a heavy accident. I had a heart attack, right? So how do I secure that? Usually when that figure is gone, it gets very difficult. But my economical vision that Smiling Gecko by 2025 have to be independent financially, it doesn't need me anymore, because they don't have to look for money. So they can develop themselves, right? So this is a different kind of approach, because you start to realize you cannot do this forever. And I cannot be replaced. There's not another guy like me. There's maybe another guy in a different way. But people are relating on you. They trust you. They listen to my talks. They're fascinated by that. And that's the difficulties. When do you make this break? And that's why I'm building up Smiling Gecko on a very high, completely economical, like a corporation, incorporate. Now we have over 10,000 people, actually more or less, living with us. We have 255 employees. We have the same health standard, salary standards like here. So that's what you have to do to secure actually your exit.
And yes, and
but there's 2 exits.
Yes, exactly. There's an organization called Exit.
On one exit, you can become a member here, you know, so you
yes,
can disappear really
I don't think
without paying.
No.
But you need to have an exit strategy. That's what you need to have. Absolutely. And also, the responsibility is so big that it kills you, because I cannot walk away anymore.
And Hannes, I think your KPI of making Smiling Gecko self-sufficient by 2025 is something that, when I look at the project, and you, and also Alain Bina, who is the CEO of Smiling Gecko, you know, this is just a winning team, and I totally trust. And just for the other viewers that are not sitting in Switzerland, Switzerland has this organization called Exit, which is an organization you can become a member of, and then you can choose whenever you would like to exit this world. So this is something that is legal, that is supported, and you are free to choose whenever you would like to exit this beautiful world. And with that, Hannes, I say thank you so much for your time. You mentioned it. You had only about 3 weeks ago a huge skiing accident. You had a heart attack. You're sitting in front of the camera. Nobody knows it, but with a nursing leg, to say it just in that way. What you're doing is amazing. And what I hear in the last few sentences was that stay curious, guys. And as I believe truly, because I've been studying almost 5 years now, also Kabbalah, we are not here to be, but we are here to become. And if you have this kind of mindset, the only way is always to progress, to move forward, and to look at the how to do that the best way.
You're correct. I can't add anything better.
Thank you, Hannes. And thank you, dear Mentoring TV community, for having joined us yet again for an awesome conversation, this time with Hannes Schmid about Smiling Gecko and him as the grand star artist that he really is, apart from a fabulous person. So thank you. See you soon, and stay curious.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.